Hello, bonjour. What comes to mind when you hear the word average? Qu'est-ce qui vous vient en tête quand vous entendez le mot average? Good. So, welcome, bienvenue. You're here, you're on time, so let's start. So as you already know, my name is Anna. And before we start anything, I just want to acknowledge, I just want to share, and we have to acknowledge that I'm in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, and this land is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nation. I just want to say that we are grateful to the Kanien'kehá:ka who continue to take care of this land. I always ask this, if you know on what land you are now, please put it in the chat. If you doesn't know, there's a link, there's a website that I can put in the chat just for you, just in case you don't know. But if you do, let me know.
All right, so with that being said, again, welcome back. Again, I'm Harry. And basically, for those that don't know, again, I'm basically an entrepreneur, an artist, also a community organizer. And I basically leverage the power of self-transformation, mindset, and community empowerment to create social change and also to forge new path for masculinity. So also I'll be a co-facilitator for today. So I hope you're all ready for a great experience today. We're going to have a meaningful conversation around identity. So
yes, and just to let you know a little bit about myself. My real name is Joanna, and I'm an advocate for self-esteem and joie de vivre. So this conversation is perfect to close up the series that we have with Experience Canada. I also really try to combine mindfulness and different approach to have a conversation like that. So sometimes we use art, sometimes I'm going to use film, sometimes I'm going to use music, but the main goal is really to have a social impact, and also a social impact, but not only social impact, but also like a personal transformation for yourself. So that's the basic, that's why I try to do every single day.
Right, and together we form we never was average. I mean, together, right? And what never was average? What do we do at Never Was Average? We basically curate mindful spaces, community-based artistic and cultural experiences, and we also create digital content to bring a positive representation of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, right? So basically, well, we exist because we definitely want to facilitate social change through the power of conversation, community, and culture. All right, so with that being said, again, I hope you're all ready for another third edition of Not Your Average Conversation. And for those that don't know, this is basically a mindful space for you to really connect, exchange, share, and learn, right, in a positive space. And today's also a reminder that you don't have to fit in no particular box. You're allowed to explore your identity fully, right, with no limitation. And today, throughout this conversation, we're going to need your engagement throughout the whole experience, right? And it's really, we want to basically combine mindfulness and our shared lived experiences so we can really explore this topic together, right? So for those that were in previous conversation that we've had, you know that we have principles for facilitating these conversations, right? So these are basic principles to ensure that we are all in a positive and mindful space. And I'm just gonna run through these principles real quick so we all have a good understanding of what needs to be done on an individual level to create that space, right? So today we want to really practice empathy. And by doing that, we need to, one, simply listen, right? And as we hold space, it's important to do it without judgment. Also, we need everyone to speak from their own lived experiences. So I always try to start with I, And then also we want to have an open mind, and we want to be curious, right? So remember to keep an open mind, and also it's important to respect others and their time, and also the time, because sometimes we want to share, and then we forget that, we only have an hour and some change together, right? And last, but most importantly, try not to fix anyone or others with different ideas or opinion, right? So if you all agree to these principles, please drop us a thumbs up in the chat, or just use the thumb reaction.
Good.
All right, perfect. And now throughout the conversation, if you want to share, you could do it by either writing a comment in the group chat, or you could just raise your hand, and then we'll give you the floor. All right.
Now that you know our names, I want to know yours. And for that, I always have some different questions. So I want you to tell me, if you could only eat one fruit for the rest of your life, what would it be? And just say your name too. So we're going to talk about identity, and especially self-identity, because identity is a large, it's a large topic. So we want to, break it down a little bit. So what is self-identity? Self-identity, as a definition, is your knowledge of and perception of yourself. It is by experiencing, learning, and having feedback from those around us that we come to identify our characteristic, abilities, needs, and feelings. Together, we will discuss the different ways of accepting, building self-esteem, accepting ourselves first, and evolving at our own pace. Today, this conversation is really a roundtable, and we really want everyone to share. If you want, we're not gonna pressure you, but it could be fun because we have different people here, and each and every single one of you have different identities that I can see, or that we don't know, that we cannot see too. So I think it could be interesting if you all willing and down to participate. So basically, my first question for you, now that I gave you like a basic definition, but I'm gonna ask for yourself, what does self-identity mean to you? Just for me, juste pour moi, comme j'essaie de parler les deux langues en même temps, mais bear with me. Self-identity, c'est vraiment difficile à expliquer, mais un peu comme Élodie a dit, c'est vraiment quelque chose que tu as dans toi que les autres ne peuvent pas voir. Et des fois, c'est difficile à être ta propre... En fait, je ne veux pas dire ta vraie personne quand tu es une personne vraie, mais comme d'être ta personne que tu penses que tu es versus qu'est-ce que les autres autour de toi pensent que tu es. Donc, des fois, c'est comme how do we navigate like how people think of you and then how you think of yourself. So basically, that's the main reason why we have this conversation today, by the way. Ari.
I'll say for myself, self-identity, to me is like the foundation of my life, meaning, that's how it's going to inform me on what I want to do, where I want to go. Also, it's going to reinforce my beliefs. And it's also is going to guide me in an environment where everyone is trying to pull you off from all different directions. I think when you're self-aware and you know who you are, you're able to make better decisions and do things for yourself, as opposed to trying to, like we mentioned earlier today, like fitting into a box, or having this pressure of feeling of wanting to be accepted, right? I think when you have a self-identity, there's also there's also like self-acceptance that comes with that, you know. So yeah, that's how I would define it.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, the reason why we always talk about why identity is a main subject when at Never Was Average, when we do project or conversation, is just because that when I was young, I never really thought about identity. I was just like following like what everyone was doing. And then it's been the past few years that every time that we were doing that conversation related to mental health or whatever conversation, the identity part and the self-identity always showed up. So that's why we realized that we, like, unconsciously, everything that we do is by making sure that everyone can be their own self. And this is part of their identity too. So I think that even just for me, like, if I can have like a main definition, it's gonna be as the same as Elodie's, like something that we can see, but also like Rafael say, like this, like we're always evolving. So maybe today I have an identity, like you see myself and I present myself as Hannah, mindfulness facilitator, but maybe in 2 years, I'm gonna be someone else, right? And I don't mind, because this is how I'm gonna present myself, because of the experience that I'm gonna have will maybe change the way of maybe it will change my thoughts of my beliefs. So I think like you say, Rafael, it's really like something that it's evolving and it's not something that's static. So now that we know self-identity and everyone has their own definition, also self-identity is also the knowledge and perception of yourself. So everyone just shared that. It's also about like experiencing and learning. And also I feel that identity is something that self-identity is something that is super, you have to be aware of yourself. I think like this is the part that we need to think, like to be aware of our action of or our belief. And this gonna, like Ari say, like this gonna help you to like develop yourself, but also to make certain decision in your life. So we have to think about that.
So now that we covered a bit of what self-identity means to you, we wanted to know, when you think about your identity, how would you define its core, right? If you would have to pick different aspect, right? How would you define them, right? I know it's a very hard exercise to do, so we got you covered on that.
Yes, we got you.
We're gonna help you. All right. So we're gonna provide you with a list of words.
Wait.
And just pick one that would define to its core your identity, right? So for example, you have experiences, right? We talked about lived experiences. It could be your gender, it could be hobbies, it could be your heritage, right? It could be your education, your career, even where you're from, your city, right? Or the people that you associate yourself with, right? So if you have to pick some other things on that list, what would be, for example, the top 3 things that would define your identity at the core, right? So for myself, I would say definitely experiences. I've been through so many ups and downs, and I've learned through so many of my experiences, and that shaped me into the man that I am today, that it's definitely something that will define me to the core, right? Every time that I express myself, I always go back to my lived experiences, right? I always find my answers in the past, right? Things that I've went through. And then also my job, my career, because I'm so passionate about it. And I'm constantly working on that. So it plays a big part into who I am today, right? And then also my circle, the people that I have around me, right? I think are definitely influencing the person that I am today. And so, yeah, I would pick these 3 for sure. Mm-hmm. So how about you? What would be your top 3?
Moi, ce serait beaucoup de mes expériences. C'est sûr, le genre joue beaucoup dedans, car tu sais, des fois, je le dis en tant que femme, tu sais, il y a des choses que je sais que comme, surtout avec mon héritage familial, le fait que mon père, tu sais, en tant que femme, tu dois faire ci, en tant que femme, tu peux pas faire ça. Mais je sais que comme, des fois, de mon identité, je sais qu'il y a des choses, puis je sais que comme, ah, je suis une femme, mais je vais quand même le faire. En tout cas, j'essaie de briser certains trucs que mon père me disait. Donc, il y a ça qui joue beaucoup dans mon identité parce que je sais là, en vieillissant, qu'il y a des choses que je fais que c'est vraiment comme pour prouver un point. Ensuite, je dirais mon travail. En fait, comme des fois, puis je vous dis ça parce que je le remarque, des fois quand on rencontre quelqu'un, surtout quand on crée nos conversations, quand on rencontre quelqu'un, on dit c'est quoi ton nom, puis la première chose que tu partages, c'est qu'est-ce que tu fais dans la vie. Donc, moi, des fois, genre, je vais dire mon nom, mais je vais faire, ah, je suis cofondatrice de Never Was Average, ou genre, tout dépend avec qui que je parle, je suis genre une facilitator ou je prends un cours de méditation. Donc, des fois, tout dépendamment où ce que je suis, il y a quelques points, quelques aspects qui vont ressortir tout dépendamment avec qui que je parle, mais ça revient tout le temps à vraiment l'expérience, l'héritage et mon travail que je fais aujourd'hui qui me définit. Donc là, on a parlé de self-identity, labels. Maintenant, on veut parler des labels. Encore une fois, là, on parle de labels en général, mais encore là, on va parler de self-labeling. On va le rendre plus personnel. So, self-labeling, c'est quoi? Is what you call yourself in your head. They are what we put ourselves in boxes trying to define who we are. We do it to others and we do it to ourselves. Just a tiny example, like I label myself as an Aquarius because I was born in February. That's a label, but that's not the self. Like I'm just labeling myself as an Aquarius, right? But that doesn't mean anything. Whether it's positive or negative, what we whisper to ourselves every day has a great influence on our we self-concept, dictate the direction of our thought, action, also belief. More so labels are attached to us by society too. So someone's gonna put like just by saying me and Ari is gonna be in the box of a man and I'm gonna be in the box of a woman. So society made us that way. Also what we think we are, attach yourself and how we describe ourselves the way we think. So this is self-labeling. So like I say, I gave you an example of like just me saying to myself that I'm an Aquarius and this is my label, but that doesn't mean anything. But there's so many labels that we define ourselves. So let's talk about that a little bit. So I want to ask you, what label have you attached yourself lately? Tell us more about it.
We do so many different things, right? And then like we're community builders, right? Organizers, and then we're creatives, and then then we want to create any type of projects, right? And then when you're within this group, like you mentioned, you're creative. When you're on the other side, you're a community builder, right? And again, sometimes because you don't have the opportunity to showcase like your other identity, other aspect of your identity, right? And also because sometimes you just feel comfortable just being in that space, in that zone, and not have to have other conversation about different topics, right? So I could definitely relate to that.
Yeah, labels that last year people were telling us that we were activists, and then we didn't like that word because like we're not activists, like we're just do things that I guess do some change, but we don't. Personally, for myself, I don't like that label because from my understanding, it's like they're putting us in that box and we cannot do something creative because they sometimes like the outsider don't think that you can also be like for myself, I can also be a creative. I can also be a creative, but I can also decide to go walk outside and then march for something. But sometimes people think that if you stick to just one of the labels, you have to just be there. And there's a lot of conversation in that I'm a part of, and people just like tend to say, oh, but you know what, I'm just gonna be an activist and that's it, you know. But I'm like, you can be everything. So yeah, I definitely I'm always, and even now, like I don't even know what's the label that I want to put myself. Like now I'm like, I'm a creative, I'm a creator, but I don't even know if tomorrow I'm gonna change it. So yes. So that we have another question that I think will.
Well, you know, before you move on to the, I just have a quick question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question real quick. So have you ever been influenced to jump in another box because of your friends or pressure, or, you know, have that ever happened to you? You know, who want to share the experience? Like, was it a good experience? Did you find something interesting by doing that, by jumping into that specific box? Were you able to identify that box as I'm not jumping in that box anymore? Or did you find yourself finding something meaningful?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
A difficult one.
For myself, she influenced me to get in a lot of these different boxes, you know, and just exploring and just, again, just, I think I've developed the ability to just try new things, and at least to try it once, and then I'll know if it's for me. If it's not, then I know not to do it again. But sometimes I think we have this pressure, not only that we put on ourselves, but from others, to kind of like we're kind of like afraid to try new things and explore. So I just wanted to know, like, how did that play in your personal life? Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to what you just said, because I studied in fashion marketing and I worked in fashion for a few years. So when we just switched and I decided to do this, people was like, but you like this fashion girl, how come now you're hosting conversation? Like they don't understand, but I do believe, like what I see is that part of me, like the fashion is part of my identity. So I still enjoy it and love it, but I just don't work in it, right?
So, and you know what's crazy about it too is that people would try to bring back that label on and put it back on you. Like, they won't accept the fact that you're doing something else, you're something completely different now, but they will still associate you with this girl that worked in fashion, and won't accept the fact that now I'm in community. Right? All right. But I think Clara brought up an important point, is the fact that sometimes, like, that transition is quite a journey, right? And it's not going to happen overnight. You got to still believe and stay true to yourself in order to complete that transition and end up on the other side happy with the decisions you've made, you know. So that's why I was interested to ask about your experience.
Labels affect who you are as a person. So basically, like, the question will be like, comment les étiquettes affectent ton identité en tant que personne et de la façon que tu agis. So how, like, your labels affect the way that you act around people, right? So even like just for me now that I'm gonna talk a lot about this, but I'm doing this meditation training, and then I try to fit that box of being mindful and calm, but sometimes it doesn't work because, you know, like the world. So sometimes I just
those other labels
So sometimes I just catch myself. I'm like, no, you should be like, you know, calm. You should not be angry and all that. Just like whatever I believe in. But now that I'm doing that, like, I also feel like people around me think that I should be that way. So I know that for myself, I'm like, damn, I need to represent like the mindful, mindful teacher, So that's a question for you, like how the labels that you have for yourself affect you, or even it could be positive or negative, but do you think about that? Ouais, merci d'avoir partagé. En fait, t'as vraiment bien expliqué, puis j'aime comment que tu as terminé comme accepte moi comme je suis, puis de vraiment comme chaque boîte, en fait, quand tu fais une grosse boîte avec, puis ça, c'est toi. Donc, ouais, merci beaucoup. Dans quelle situation pensez-vous que votre véritable identité personnelle est représentée? In what situation do you feel your true personal identity is represented?
The most, I would say.
The most, yeah, the
le
most.
plus. Right now, like work takes a lot of space in my life, so I would say like I would have to say work. And in the work setting, I'm fully immersed in, and I'm fully myself. I'm like so in line with my purpose. I think that there's no doubt that what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. So yeah, I would say definitely at work. Définitivement, merci d'avoir partagé ça, Elodie. Est-ce qu'on a quelqu'un d'autre qui aimerait partager par rapport à ça?
Raphaël a écrit, moins se comparer aux autres et se concentrer davantage sur nous-mêmes. Ouais, ça c'est une bonne stratégie qu'il faut constamment se dire de ne pas se comparer parce que c'est facile de se comparer aux autres. Ouais. Je pense que ça aussi, ça fait partie de juste une façon de se transformer en fait, comme tu vas evolve. Puis dès que tu vois que tu compares aux autres, il faut juste que tu te recentres sur OK, c'est qui que tu es. Puis je pense que c'est ça qui est un peu le plus difficile, c'est genre de se recentrer au bon moment. Ouais, mais c'est une bonne stratégie.
Donc, on va vous partager un peu comme 5 tips que nous, on aimerait que vous soyez au courant. So le premier, ça serait vraiment to set realistic expectation for yourself. I think a lot of time we put a lot of pressure on us, unnecessary pressure. Donc, c'est bon que si you set like, realistic expectation for yourself, ça te donne la possibilité d'explorer et de faire des erreurs aussi également. Ensuite, je pense que ça, c'est aussi plays a big part into this, remembering your accomplishments, but also your failures, and learning from your failures. So when we talked about experiences, je pense que ça it plays a big role into shaping us as a person, et de pas oublier ces choses-là, right? Parce que c'est ce qui nous aide à grandir. Le troisième, Raphaël l'a déjà partagé avec nous, c'est vraiment, try to not compare yourself to others. You're always going to find someone who's better at that thing than you, or, always going to find someone who's richer, wiser, even more beautiful than you. But that's not the goal. The goal is to see that as a source of inspiration, to push yourself to go even further and beyond, right? Le quatrième, je dirais aussi, c'est give yourself a break, comes back to the third point, which is, don't aim for perfection. The goal is just to grow as a person individually, is to make progress, right? I think progress is more important than perfection. Perfection, you can really never achieve that. And again, we all make mistake, but mistake is a sign that you're trying. That's the thing though. Some people don't make mistake because they don't try, And le cinquième, ça serait le plus important is you gotta master your brain, master your thoughts, because again, what you whisper to yourself has the power to weaken your confidence, so it's important to constantly check those thoughts. And I would say that knowing that again, like as human creatures, we evolve. It's important to take note of that and to seek for these opportunities to evolve and to add it to our routine to constantly check ourselves. Like, all right, I've been doing this for a year now. Do I like this? You know, I liked it when I started, but now I like it a little less. Do I want to continue doing that? You know, like constantly check yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's you have to do a lot of self-reflection when we talk about self-identity. Because now we talk about labels, but then sometimes labels, c'est même pas des étiquettes qu'on s'est mis nous-mêmes, c'est les étiquettes des autres. Mais si tu fais un peu de self-reflection, de, comme tu disais, de se poser des questions, bon, peut-être pas chaque jour, parce que sinon tu vas te questionner tout le temps, mais de prendre des moments pour se questionner comme, qu'est-ce que je fais en ce moment, c'est ça, est-ce que la façon que je me présente, est-ce que c'est correct, ou est-ce que je suis d'accord avec comment que quelqu'un d'autre me présente, puis j'ai jamais dit à cette personne, non, I don't like that label, je suis pas dans cette boîte. Donc, je pense que c'est, ouais, des fois, I think that we have to be responsible of that, like, de s'assurer que comme, even though quelqu'un d'autre nous met dans une boîte, on n'est pas d'accord, de le dire.
But
Donc,
you know what?
Je pense qu'on devrait faire ça plus souvent.
You know what? Just to add on to your point, I do think that you should do it on a daily basis. You know why? Because in the society that we're in right now, every day you're going to leave your house or turn on the television and you're going to have someone telling you or trying to influence you to do something that you had no intention of doing. Right? So you could find yourself just following a bunch of different people on a journey that you never intended to be on. Right? So you gotta, again, every morning, just be intentional. Like what experience do I want to create for myself today?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and if you do that every single day, I could tell you when it's going to be your time to go, you're going to look back and say, you know what? For the most part, I did what I wanted to do and I did what made me happy. You know, so with that being said, the conversation is coming to an end, unfortunately. But I just hope that you had a great experience today. I just hope that you learned something and that it guided you to explore yourself even more and allow yourself to grow as a person. And you want to thank you all for just, you know, being a part of this conversation.
Yeah, pour vrai, merci beaucoup il y a beaucoup de visages qui sont revenus à chaque fois, donc merci beaucoup d'avoir été présent. Et j'espère que ces conversations-là vous a aidé aussi, comme j'espère que vous allez poursuivre vos réflexions, comme lui a dit à chaque jour, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so again, merci beaucoup, puis passez une très belle fin de semaine. And hopefully we'll see you some other time for another conversation.